Beautiful city of Wilsonville in the state of Oregon. It's my first ever visit to Oregon, and it's my great honor and pleasure to meet you, sir. My name is Jong-woo Han. I am the president of Korean War Legacy Foundation, which has about 1,500 interviews of Korean War veterans, not just from the United States, but from other 21 countries that participated in the war. We are doing this to preserve your memory, first of all, because it's been already more than 70 years. And we want to honor your service and sacrifice of many Korean War veterans who lost their lives, and for the family. But at the same time, we want to give something for teachers so that they can use, and when they're talking about the Korean War in the context of Cold War in their classroom. Because there are so little about this war which came up with such a beautiful outcome. Simultaneous economic development and democratization in Korea, and also U.S.-Korea became one of the strongest allies. They like each other. Despite that, we don't teach, we don't talk much about it. That's why we want to make these interviews as a curricular resources, and the curriculum book that you have, that I gave you, is part of our publication. That's why we are doing this. Again, so pleased to meet with you, and I'm sure that you're going to add so much fresh perspective to the Jangjin battle, which was chosen few. Thank you so much for coming, and please introduce yourself. What is your name, sir?
My name is William Chisholm. You spell the last name C-H-I-S-H-O-L-M.
What is the ethnic origin of this last name, Chisholm?
I believe...
It's hard to pronounce for me.
Well, Zane Grey, in his books, which were Western, in the preface of it, he would start off the Chisholm Trail, but the wranglers, or the people that did the cows and everything else, could not pronounce that name, Chisholm. So he abbreviated it to Chisholm. Now, Chisholm was a movie that John Wayne made also, years ago. But anyhow, my father was French and my mother was Syrian.
Syrian?
Syrian.
Oh.
And my grandmother and grandfather came from Syria in 1902, and they went through Ellis Island in New York. So, but from Kenton, Ohio, I don't know what the name itself.
Got it. What is your birthday?
May 31st, 1932.
May
31st, 1932.
32.
Yeah.
So that makes you 90?
Yes.
You look like a 50-year-old man.
If you were a girl, I'd give you a big hug.
Thank God I'm not the girl, but wow, you look so young.
Thank you.
Thank God that you don't have much hair in the middle. If you had the hair, you look like a 40-year-old man.
Thank you.
Wow. Very impressive, sir. How did you maintain that such...
I don't know. It's my grandmother lived to 103. My mother passed away at 99,
So you have a long way to go.
My grandfather passed away at 82 or 83.
Wow. Good DNA.
Somewhere along the line.
Where were you born?
Stockton, California.
Stockton, S-T?
S-T-O-C-K-T-O-N.
Stockton, California. And tell me about your family background when you were growing up, parents and your siblings.
I have a half-sister, that's all.
So you were the only son?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And we traveled from California to, let's see, we went to Montana, we went to Idaho, to Washington, to Oregon. Back in those days, you had to have kind of hard. Because
Yeah.
it was shortly after the Depression,
Mm-hmm.
and jobs were hard to come by, so he traveled and made a living for his family.
Oh. So you have to constantly moving around.
Right.
Oh, must be hard.
It was hard, especially when I started school, because one school I go to, I'd be behind, and maybe the next school that I went to, I would be, ahead of people. So,
Mm-hmm. So then, what high school did you graduate, and where and when?
Vancouver High School, in the state of Washington,
Mm-hmm. When?
last part of 49.
Mm-hmm. And there, did you learn anything about Korea?
No, I did not.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Now you are Korean War veteran.
Correct.
Yeah. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
All right. So, after your graduation, what did you do?
I went into the Army.
You enlisted?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Where did you get the basic training?
I enlisted in Portland, Oregon, then I went to basic training down in Fort Ord, California.
Mm-hmm. So, when was it? In the Fort Ord in California. What
Yeah,
year was it?
1950. I enlisted in March 1st of 1950.
Mm. So by the time, did Korean War broke out?
No,
Not yet.
no,
You didn't have any idea.
no.
And after that, where did you go?
I was still at Fort Ord, then I went down to, let's see,
You were in the Camp Stoneman.
yes,
Yes. And then when did you go for Korea then?
it would be in September of 1950.
From where? From Stoneman to...
Yes,
So tell me about you, September 1950. When did you arrive in Korea and where, please?
when did I do it? You gotta remember I was a young man, I can't remember.
Was it Busan or Incheon?
No, I did not go to Incheon. We landed in it was on the,
Did you go by airplane?
oh no, I went over on, I remember we shipped over by sea on the HB Freeman.
Uh-huh.
Then we got to Camp Drake
That's in Japan.
in Japan.
Yeah.
And from there, I know we went by boat and my memory isn't that good.
But definitely not Incheon, not Busan.
No.
No.
We went up the side of the coast.
Of North Korea.
Yes.
So that must be Wonsan or...
Wonsan sounds like, yes. Thank
Re-
you for, you remember more than I do.
My surprise. So, do you remember what month that you arrived in Wonsan Harbor?
I believe it was October.
October. What was your unit at the time?
I was assigned to the 7th Division, 31st Regiment.
7th Division and?
31st Regiment.
Mm-hmm. How about battalion?
2nd Battalion.
Mm-hmm. Company?
Company G.
Mm. What was your rank?
Recruit.
What do you mean?
What's below a PFC?
Really?
Yes. I was still a recruit at that time. I hadn't made PFC yet. I didn't make PFC until maybe maybe 3-4 months after we got there.
I never heard about that.
You never heard about a recruit?
No, because everybody had the rank at the time.
I didn't have no rank.
Why is that?
I have no idea. I was a good boy too.
But you didn't have a rank.
I didn't have any rank.
Okay. And what was your specialty? Just
I
infantryman?
was a rifleman at that
Rifleman. And why? Most of the Korean War veterans arrived either in Busan or Incheon or Gimpo, because by air.
Yeah.
But you arrived in Wonsan, which is the harbor of the east coast of Korean Peninsula, which is North Korean part of the, Why were you there? Did you know why you were sent to there?
No.
Okay.
No idea.
So what happened after you landed in Wonsan? Where did you go? North?
We went inland and then we went north, but I couldn't tell you where.
Mm-hmm. How far north? Were you close to the border?
No. I think we were inland more, because then when we were called to go over and be a replacement, more or less, for the 1st Marine Division, we were trucked in to replace the Marine Corps there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they were pulling all kinds of people from different regiments and everything else to fill in the spots that we were supposed to fill in for the Marine Corps.
So what happened?
What happened where?
You were trying to replace the Marine, right?
Correct.
Yeah. And you were ended up in chosen few battle? So
Yes.
tell me about those things. Detail, please.
Well, the Marine Corps, they pulled out their people, and then we went in and filled their spots where they were. And I kind of joke about it all the time, when the Marine Corps was, with their backs against the wall, they called in the Army to help them out, so. And we joke back and forth, but we're still, good friends and everything else.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But do you remember the location where you were? Yudam-lee, or was it around the Jangjin Lake?
We were at the east side of the chosen reservoir.
Reservoir, yeah,
Yeah.
east side of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And did you actually engage in the battle?
Yes, I think the battle lasted probably for 3 nights and 4 days.
Where? When?
As soon as we were there and replaced the Marines, we faced 2 divisions of Chinese soldiers.
Do you remember was December,
December 1950.
November and December 1950, yeah, for sure. And can you describe that 3 nights and 4 days of battle with 2 divisions of Chinese soldiers? How was it?
Terrifying. Bugles, whistles. I don't think that the Chinese really valued lives, really. Because when they would come towards us, they were just like ants crawling. I'm sorry.
What were you thinking? You were surrounded by these 2 divisions of Chinese soldiers. Were you afraid? Were you scared?
Was I scared? I don't want to say a bad word, but hell yes I was. No kidding. I wasn't that old. And I was just hoping that I'd be able to come home. Really.
Mm-hmm. You said that 3 nights, constant battle, right?
Correct.
You were able to sleep or at all?
No,
Not at all for 3 nights?
no.
You kidding me? For 3 nights, you were not able to sleep.
No.
What did you eat then for 3 nights, for 4 days?
Nothing.
Where were you? Were you in the trench or you were in the...
Well, we were in foxhole, basically, but we were in, yeah. We had trenches, but basically it was just, the ground was so hard, the only way you could, actually make a hole was what we weren't supposed to do, but guys would throw a grenade and run for cover to get the I'm sorry.
Wasn't it very cold at the time?
It was 70 to 80 degrees below zero,
Man,
and we lost hundreds of our comrades to cold weather because we did not have cold weather gear.
you didn't?
No, I've got pictures of myself, which will be showed at the interpretive center here in Wilsonville, Oregon. It shows me in what we call fatigues,
Yeah.
in just a regular field jacket and regular combat boots. I never had any cold weather gear. I've got frostbite, and I've got other ailments that went along with cold weather.
You didn't have any sea ration to eat?
No.
Tootsie Roll?
Well, Tootsie Rolls were later.
Later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, the Tootsie Roll story.
Yeah.
You heard that one.
Yes, of course.
We were short on 60 mortars, and one of the lieutenants ordered somebody to get the 2 division rear and tell them we're out of Tootsie Rolls. Well, Tootsie Rolls was I got a blank here.
No problem.
Instead of 60 mortars, we would order 60 mortars. I mean, Tootsie Rolls.
Tootsie Roll, yeah.
Was a code word
Yes.
for 60 mortars. And by the time it got to Japan and they they dropped it in by air in the canisters, and we opened them up, and it wasn't 60 mortars, it was Tootsie Rolls. That's what we survived on
Mm-hmm.
for about a week and a half to 2 weeks as we were coming out. So it's just horrific.
Do you have a PTSD?
Yes, I see a psychiatrist all the time.
All the time.
All the time. I'm under prescription drugs for depression, and I still have nightmares.
Do you still see that flash memory of the battle? You still see the Chinese? And that really bothers you. You wake up, right?
I'll break up in a cold sweat. I hear helicopters. I stop. Wherever I'm at, I stop. I know my Grace passed away 10 years ago. We were in Salem and near the airport. There was a helicopter going over, and I was at a stoplight.
Uh-huh.
And she says, "Bill, light's green." I didn't hear her. I froze.
Your wife. I know the wives of those Korean War veterans who have a PTSD really, really suffer together.
She was a wonderful woman.
Mm-hmm.
She really was.
I'm sorry that you missed.
Well, 10 years, you know, I mean. See, I have a lady that comes in to help me also, she's a caregiver.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have rheumatoid arthritis and I have other disabilities that I can't really dress myself.
Hmm.
I can't use shoelaces like you have.
Ah,
Mine have to be
zipper.
Velcro. I've got certain things that are wrong, so the VA helps me, and the Veterans Administration is really, really great.
They should.
Yes.
But as I mentioned in the beginning, you look so young, despite so many problems.
My body is old.
Looking back all those years and the moments that you had to spend there like hell in December of 1950, what do you think about that now? How do you put that into a perspective? What happened to you? What happened to you and how do you digest it? You didn't have to be there.
I volunteered though,
Mm-hmm.
because of the simple reason that I wanted to be in the Army. Let me put it this way. I had a very, very bad relationship at that time with my stepmother.
Mm.
That's why I joined the Army, to get away from her. Not my father, but to get away from her.
Mm.
And if I had to do it again, you know, just, I think when we were going overseas on the ship, I could hear older gentlemen talking, you know, like, there were some gentlemen that were Second World War, and they were saying, yeah, he said, we're going over there to fight communism. You know, it's not right that North Korea came down and invaded South Korea. And I could hear these older gentlemen talking about it, and they had stripes, you know, on their shoulders. They were some staff sergeants, some master sergeants and everything else. They had gray hair. And so, you know, I kind of listened to them. Because I was learning, you know, about Korea from them, basically. Because they knew where we were going, but I didn't.
So you didn't have a tent, you didn't have anything to protect yourself from that freezing cold, you didn't have something to eat. Wow, it's almost like a miracle that you survived.
It is a miracle that we survived.
Mm.
Everything we had was frozen, though. We had to keep the equipment and everything else running 24/7. And if we could find something to burn, we burned it.
Had to.
We had to,
Yeah.
you know, and we had guys that we were told, okay, we had what they call mummy sleeping bags. Don't zip them.
Uh-huh. Because it's going to be frozen.
Why? Why can't we zip them? Because the simple reason that we were getting overrun by Chinese sometimes. Not in my area, but if you were in your sleeping bag and you couldn't unzip it, you were dead.
You are?
No ifs, ands, or buts.
How close were you to the Chinese soldier?
What about hand-to-hand combat?
You did?
Yes.
You did hand-to-hand combat.
Correct.
And there were so many Chinese, more than 300,000 of them there, and you were able to survive.
Correct.
Oh man, this is crazy. So after those 4 days, what happened to you?
We came off the line. And I came off, let me think back. We came off the line and then we came across the ice. And
Bill, I'm sorry, but can you take it off because of the sunlight that has a reflection? And I want people to be able to see you direct and straight. Thank you. And take your time, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. But I want to hear from you.
This is the hard part about it, is that we had to leave some of our dead up there. And we had capabilities of breaking through the ice and everything else and burying them. We came out on the ice and I can't remember, but one of them was a Colonel Beale, and he was driving a Jeep. And when we were coming across the ice, we were coming towards the Marines, and I could hear somebody screaming, at us as we were coming across the ice, because they thought we were Chinese. And I heard somebody say, screaming, "Stand down." Stand down. To the guys that were on machine guns, because they were about ready to open up on us. I'm sorry.
Oh.
And one of them was Dick Bausch. And Dick just passed away about 4 months ago. He was part of my group of the chapter. And he says, I remember that night. He says, if that sergeant hadn't told us to stand down, he says, we would have fired on him.
You could have been killed
Easily.
by the friendly fire.
That's another story. That's another story.
And Chinese always following up you guys, right?
No, they didn't come down.
They didn't come down?
No,
No?
no.
Thank God.
Yeah. But when we came out of Coterie,
Oh, so you were in Coterie.
yes. Excuse me. We came out of Coterie and we brought out. There's been controversy in regards to how many refugees that came out with us.
You're right.
And there's been like 92,000, 95,000, 100,000, and the ones that I heard about was just 92,000 refugees. And over the years, I have actually met different refugees that did come out with us. We were at a parade in Vancouver, Washington one time, went by the reviewing stand, and we had chosen few, banners on the side of our vehicles and stuff. And I looked over to the side, and there was a Korean lady over there. She was crying. So I was in the lead Jeep, and I told my driver, I said, well, I'm getting out. I'm going to go over there and see what's wrong. And so by the time I got to the lady, she was still crying, and her husband, and I said, what's wrong? She said, we came out with you to Hong out of 92,000 people. We were at a Milwaukee high school once for Veterans Day, and we were in the gymnasium. All the veterans were together, and the class president, who was Korean, got up and he says, I want to thank all the veterans here for today, for making their sacrifices. Now this was Second World War, Korea, and I can't remember who all, but he says, especially the chosen few. And so he says, if it hadn't been for you, he says, I wouldn't be here. My grandparents came out with you. And if you, Senator John Lim, have you heard that name? He's Korean. He made senator. He lives in Troutdale.
Oh, yeah, I heard about
He
him.
lives in Troutdale. And he's very comical sometimes. He says, I was houseboy. A lot of the times he starts his speech that way.
Mm.
And he's a very, very smart individual, believe me. He really is. But he is comical a lot of the time too. But he's a wonderful person.
Mm. So you saw this huge amount of people fleeing from North Korea, the refugees. What were you thinking, looking at them with you?
Well, there was a problem too that some of the North Koreans were intermingling with the other people. And I have seen, I've seen some of them get shot, personally.
Yep.
And it's quite the thing to see, civilians, especially, I don't know what you would call them, Mamasan,
Mm-hmm.
carrying their young babies and everything else, and everything that they've got in the world, they're on their backs or in those the yokes.
Mm-hmm.
That's another story too.
Did you know why you were there?
The fight for the Korean people, the South Koreans, the communism, the tyranny that North Korea was, and then when I got back to the United States, I started reading a little bit more about geography, North Korea, South Korea, and the tyrants that, like Kim Jong, now, he learned from his father. Now his father learned from his father. And there's been people from the United States that have, on OPB, which I love to read, look at, I see where some millionaires and billionaires have sent people over there to North Korea to take care of people that have cataracts that haven't seen for years, and they take them in and do the operation and
Yep.
everything else. And here's a picture up on the wall.
Kim Il Sung.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're praising him. You know, that's, boy, I feel so sorry for those North Koreans. I really do. The peasants and everything else.
I'm with you.
Where they have to go out and take bark off of a tree or some grass and eat it. I mean, it's ridiculous.
It is.
And there's a time, friendly fire, you say, we were strafed in napalm by our F-86 jets.
Mm-hmm.
By that time, I was a squad leader. This was in June 6th of 1951.
June of 1951.
Yeah.
Mm. Where were you?
Hill 351.
351. Was it in the Iron Triangle?
No,
Where was it?
we were up. Oh, Lord have mercy. Tanks were going up on both valleys, blowing out the bunkers.
Was it east or west side of it?
What, east?
East. Punchbowl?
We were going north, actually. Can't remember the name of the hill, but we were going up the finger. And I remember the old man says, get the panels out. So we had to get our air panels out because we knew that there was going to be a napalm drop. So we got the panels off. Got them out in plain sight. And the next thing you know, the jets are flying by. And then you can see these silver cylinders coming through the sky.
Pork Chop Hill? Was it Pork Chop Hill?
No. It was none of the Iron Triangle, Pork Chop, Heartbreak, any of those.
Mm. So let's go back to Chosen Field, the Jangjin battle. So you came through Kodori, and you mentioned about Kodori, and I heard a lot about this Kodori Star. Do you know? Are you aware of the Kodori Star?
Yeah, because if the Chinese blew out part of the mountain, which was a one-way road coming out, and the only way we could actually get out was by having, I don't know what the name of the bridge was, it was
Yeah,
composite. It had to take 2 to 3 sections of portable bridge put together by the engineers
yeah.
over the gap at Chisholm Pass.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
And and they put it together under fire of the Chinese.
Yep.
And if they hadn't have put it together, we probably wouldn't be talking to you.
And the weather was really cloudy and snowy, so that the airplane was not able to operate. But suddenly, did you experience that? Were you there on that night?
Yeah, it opened up, and it was like daylight almost. And they were able to drop, I don't know whether it was they called a Bailey Bridge or whatever. It was finally able to drop it. It was the second drop that they made. The first drop went somewhere else and wasn't any use to put together.
So you were actually there when that happened. Wow. And then so you went through Kodori and then passed and then came down to Hamhung? Hungnam.
To the port.
Yep. And so there must be so much crowded with the Marines and armies and refugees.
Oh, I'll tell you.
Can you describe the scene?
It was masses and masses of humanity there at the port. And it was very gratifying, that you could see all the kids, because some of the guys off the ship and everything else had candy bars and stuff, and they'd give them to the kids and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But see all that humanity, and it was very gratifying. And you got, even at my young age, I knew how they felt, because I knew that the tyranny that they were subjected to and everything else.
Oh, it's a Gosong, Wolbisan. The hill 351 was in Gangwon, the very northeast of the peninsula, and called a Gosong, or Wolbi Mountain. Does that ring the bell to you?
Not really.
So Wolbi Jeontu. And how did you evacuate from there? Was it
By ship.
by ship?
By ship.
Yeah,
To Busan.
to Busan, right? And are you aware of that Meredith Victory who
Yeah.
transported 14,000 North Korean refugees there?
Correct.
Yeah. Did you see that?
Admiral Looney has passed away now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were able to see those
Yes,
in your eyes.
yes.
How was it? I mean, that Meredith Victory was supposed to carry the equipment and soldiers, but instead they emptied everything and they received 14,000 North Korean refugees.
I guess. I didn't count them.
But you were there.
Yes,
You saw it.
yes.
I just had an interview with third engineer of the Meredith Victory, Merle Smith.
I'll be doggone.
Yeah, it's already in the newspaper, and you can check that interview in our website.
I don't have a computer. My Grace did all of the computer work and everything else, and I don't have it up here to.
Do you live alone now, or?
Yes,
Wow.
but see, I have a caregiver that comes in to help me, to dress me and other things, because
Do you have a cellular phone? Mobile phone? Do you have a phone?
yes, but it's not a smartphone or an iPhone.
Give me the number so that I'll call you when this interview is edited, and so that I'll talk to your caregiver so that she can help you to see it, okay?
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I have an old flip phone. I talk and text. That I can do.
Sure, let's do that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So from Hungnam, you went to Busan.
See, yes,
Yes. And you were not wounded at all?
yes,
Wow, that's another miracle there. Huh?
that's another story.
But you got frostbite.
Yes,
Now you are suffering from PTSD.
yes.
From Busan, where did you go? You went up to, again, to the front line, right?
We got reassigned, went back up to the front line, and this is where June 6, 51, where we were at Hill 351 just sticks in my mind, so I don't, but we were going up that, and we got scraped in napalm. Then from there, I went to a MASH unit.
Because you were wounded? Burned?
Yeah,
Burned by the napalm?
yeah.
Where?
On my backs and my leg. There were spots, not big blotches, but just spots.
Uh-huh.
I jumped into a bunker,
Mm.
and the flames went over me.
So you were transported to the MASH unit,
Yep.
and then what happened?
I was there for just a couple of weeks. They had, because of the intense heat and everything else, my eyelids, up through this area, had blisters, like I had blisters on my back,
Mm.
and they were trying to treat it there. I was not, they said I wasn't severely burnt, I guess, but I still had the spots that were burnt.
And blisters all around you.
And so with the intense heat and everything else, they just went ahead and put pads on my eyes and treated me there. Then I went back to the line.
Again?
Yeah.
You were in that Hill 351 battle on June 6 of 1951.
I'm thinking that that's the hill number. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a 월비산 in Gangwon area, Gangwon province. Can you describe a little bit more detail about that Hill 351 battle? Was there North Korean or Chinese?
I haven't the slightest idea.
Must be North Koreans. And for how long? How many days that the battle
Maybe
went on?
a day and a half.
Day and a half.
Right. That was about it. That's my recollection.
Mm-hmm.
And we were making a push. Major Holland was our CO.
Mm.
That I do remember.
Mm. Who claimed the hill?
I'm sorry?
Who claimed the hill? We or not the enemies?
Well, they held the hill until we took it.
You took it.
As far as I know, we did take the hill.
Yes, good. When did you leave Korea?
September of 1951.
After that, what did you do after you come back?
I went to Camp Roberts in California. I was cadre there.
And?
And then I finished my tour there and went to Fort Lewis where I was discharged.
Discharged. Have you been back to Korea since then?
I'm back to Korea in June of 2019.
Invited by the MPBA?
Invited by the Saw Eden Church.
Oh, New Eden Church. Tell me about it. How was it? And you are in a very unique position to be able to tell the young generation here the Korea you saw in 1950 and 21st century.
Saw Eden Church sets aside their church congregation is approximately a little over 40,000 people. And they set aside $400,000 a year to bring over Korean War veterans that fought for Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And they pay your airfare, they pay for a 5-star hotel, and everything for you retired admiral from.
I know him.
You do.
Mm.
He's our buddy, and he had his voice box.
Right.
And after we came back, Admiral Kim came over to the United States.
Yep.
And he came over in July, because June we were there, then we came back. And his son is a manager out at Intel in Hillsboro. And so he came over, we had dinner with him and his grandson and his son, but his son's daughter couldn't come, but anyhow, my friend Ken Buckles is still in contact with Admiral Kim.
I want you to tell us about the Korea you saw. In addition, you mentioned about New Eden Church, but what was it like to be there in 21st century in Seoul and other? Were you able to visit to the DMZ? And please tell me those details. What kind of change has been made to those?
When we were at the DMZ, it showed this green building where the armistice was signed and everything else. And the general that was there, I can't remember his name, but anyhow, his daughter was part of our group along with her husband. And she had a book that was signed by her father, the general. And she gave that to the pastor and presented that to him. Anyhow, when we were at the DMZ, you could see the towers that were there. We were on South Korea, and then the North Korean was over there. We didn't go beyond that green building because of whatever they didn't want us to.
You cannot.
Yeah.
That's North Korea.
I know. But anyhow, the towers were empty, and the cameras and everything else were pointed down at the earth. And it was very quiet there.
Mm. How do you feel being there again in the DMZ where that you were?
It was eerie, let's put it that way. Because it was just creepy, kind of.
What about Seoul? How did it change to you? Were you able to be in Seoul City when you were in Korea for the war? No. What did you see in Korea in 2019?
I saw a beautiful city. I saw so many people, and they're going about daily whatever they did, and congenial, smiling, happy. When we would go someplace and talk with different people, the generals and everything else from Korea, Admiral Kim especially, he puts his suit on and you don't realize that he's a retired admiral.
Mm-hmm.
And they're friendly people. That's all there is to it. When we left I think the Han River, they had like one, maybe two bridges across.
Only one.
And now they got over 20.
Yeah.
And when we were there, they were building another one. And what was it? I think it was like a cable bridge or something
Yep.
that held it up or something.
Mm-hmm.
Futuristic or
Right.
whatever. Is that
Yep.
about
Yep.
it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure. But the people are so kind.
As I mentioned over the lunch today, it's obvious because without you and other Korean veteran and American intervention there in the war, might be very different Korea there.
Well, think of it, I think of it this way too, that, what was it? I lost my train of thought. What was I gonna say? You'll have to excuse me, sometimes I just draw a blank.
It happens to me too, so nothing. But when you left Korea, did you ever imagine that Korea would become like this today that you saw in 2019?
No,
Why not?
because I was a young man and I didn't look towards the future or anything else. And I felt sorry for the people that were there. And I didn't know, what would happen. I do know that Korea is, what was it Admiral Kim told me? The 5th in the world that still helps other countries? Or is
Oh,
it- Which, correct me if I was wrong, but
I can tell you about this. Korea was the aid recipient country,
right,
and now they are the member of OECD, and they are the one who transformed themselves from the aid recipient to aid giving. Right?
that's where I get the 5th in the world to do that. Is that proximate or?
I don't know. I don't know about
Maybe when Admiral Kim was talking about that, maybe I misunderstood him.
I don't know about the fifth, but that's a real transformation. Now
Right.
we're giving aid to the people who are in needs of those. Right. Yeah, and it's the 10th largest economy in the world. Can you believe that?
Yes, now I can.
You have to, right? Because
I've seen it.
you
Really.
have seen it.
You don't, when you're in one of those fancy buses that Kia makes over there, you don't see any junk cars. You don't see any cars blowing smoke and everything else.
Koreans doesn't like that.
I don't blame them.
So,
I am just so glad for Korea right now where they're at, and with this, I'm sorry, but I don't like to get into politics, but with Putin doing what he's doing right now, I think is completely, I'm not gonna say what I wanted to say, but I'm so worried that that little twerp in North Korea, and he's still firing missiles, I worry about him. And I think everybody else is worrying about him also, because you don't know what he's going to do.
right, that's the real problem. That is the last puzzle that we need to work on about the Korean question. Have you ever regret to be in Korea in that 3 days, 3 nights, and 4 days in Chosun Lake, Jangjin Lake?
I'm just glad that I'm here able to talk to you. I
In-
didn't know if I was going to make it out of there or not. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Thank God, really.
Yes, thank God. Thank God that I got home, but we still have hundreds over there,
Exactly.
you know.
Yep. And that's what DPAA is doing. Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. And we hope that we can go back to North Korea where most of the remains believed to be still there and being able to excavate it and return those to the families.
Well, I know personally that when he's passed, but General Ray Davis, who was a four-star general with the Marine Corps, he would come to some of our conventions sometimes, and he personally went over there to North Korea 3 times, talked to Ding Dong, or whatever you want to call him. Excuse me. I told you, sometimes it's a little humorous. I don't want to call him what I really want to say on but anyhow, and he said no. He said you can't go in there. He gave him the grid coordinates, everything else, and he says we've got people there. We know where they're at. Well, you can't go in there. So.
Yep. What would you say to the Marines who fought there?
I thank God that they didn't open fire on us when we were coming across the ice. And like I say, Dick Bausch, who has just recently passed away, was one of the gunners down there, and he was in the Marine Corps.
What do you want to hear from the Marine that you replaced and you had to suffer for that?
Would you repeat that, please?
What would you want to hear from the Marines that you replaced?
There's a lot of controversy about that. That if we did not hold that area there, those Chinese would have come down through us if we didn't hold and annihilate the Marines at Coterie. But like I say, it's controversial. But that's...
What do you mean by controversial? Because that's almost like a obvious sort of course of thinking, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, if you're talking to the Marine Corps, they'll say, well, you know, we held it.
Oh, okay.
All right, but actually, if we hadn't held there at that particular time, they could have broke through.
What day, do you remember what date was that? That 3 nights, 4 days that you had to suffer?
No.
December?
November, December. No, those 4 nights. No, I can't remember.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No. So now I understand that it's a kind of controversy about those, you know. But 7th Division, 31st Regiment, 2nd Battalion, G Company, you are as a status of recruited, not even a PFC. Later you become what? PFC? What was the rank that you?
So I was corporal. And
Corporal.
then staff sergeant. Rank at that time when we were in battle, you moved up pretty quick if people
Die.
died.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the first meal that you had in Hungnam when you evacuated from there? What did you eat?
In Hungnam?
Yeah. You were able to eat from that time, right?
I think we had,
Still sea ration?
I think there was sea rations, I'm not sure. I think it was sea rations.
Mm-hmm. Bill,
What?
you didn't know about Korea and you were there at one of the most severe battle period. Now you back and been to Korea, were able to see Korea what it is now. What is Korea to you personally? the country that you didn't know, but you had to fight for them. What is Korea to you? Is it too abstract?
I think Korea right now is a country that is surviving or has survived the most horrific, savage battle of its life. And it's a survivor right now. And the nation should be proud of what they have done and accomplished, really.
And your honorary service was big part of it,
Yes,
is big part of it, and will be remembered.
hopefully.
Yep, of course. That's why we are doing this.
Okay.
You know? Yep. Has to be. We haven't done much about it, and that's why we're trying to do best we can before it gets too late. And so,
You'll have to excuse me because sometimes I say something, I don't, when I was there, I was young enough that I still don't remember a whole bunch of what happened. It just, yeah,
come on.
what can I say?
Oh, of course. Yeah. It's been more than 70 years, and it's like going back to the splash of the memory that really still bothers you, and, you know, so.
There's specific things that I can remember, but it's like going back into the twilight zone, you know, and
Any other episode on that 3 nights and 4 days that you haven't told me? I mean, we need to hear from you as detailed as possible.
all you can do is just, well, the first night probably is that bells, not bells, bugles,
Bugles.
shrill whistles. And you know, they're like ants coming at you,
No matter what.
and you got machine guns there, and they're just mowing them down like crazy, you know, and they're just crawling over their dead. And it's, like I said, you know, I didn't think they even worried about their ones that they were crawling over, really. Their lives.
And that has been for 3 nights, constantly,
Not all the time.
not all the time.
But the biggest part of the time, yes. Because there'd be flares going off all the time during the night.
Bill, it's my honor and pleasure to meet you, sir, and be able to hear from you. I know it's not easy, and you still suffer from PTSD. I really, really hope that it can be better for you, and I'll pray for you. But we want to remember that, and we want to let younger generations know about these lessons from the Korean War, how U.S. soldiers been there and what they did, and
Thank you.
yep. So, Bill, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your fight for the Korean nation, and I wish very best for you and for your health.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.